Picture this. It's a rain-swept Monday morning in New York City, and the glass tower of Carter Holdings is humming with the quiet, intense energy of a 52-story corporate machine. Every single employee rushing through the lobby notices something just a little bit out of place near the service elevators. It's a new cleaning cart, the kind with a slightly rusted wheel. And pushing it is a man in a faded gray uniform. His head is down, and he's just quietly mopping the marble floors. But here's the kicker. What none of those executives or interns sipping their morning lattes actually realize is that this quiet man is Ethan Carter. He is literally the sole heir to a fortune worth tens of billions of dollars. And today, of all days, he has chosen to just disappear inside the very halls his family built. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating social experiment all about wealth, perception, and genuine human decency. So this brings us right to our central question. What happens when the sole heir to a billion-dollar empire becomes the absolute lowest-paid worker in his own company? I mean, why would a guy with access to literally every luxury in the world choose to become totally invisible? Well, it turns out Ethan just wanted one simple, profound thing that his massive fortune had never been able to buy him. He wanted someone to look at him and actually see the man, instead of just seeing a giant bank account and a famous last name.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the billionaire's disguise.
So Ethan had completely reached his breaking point. He was 38 and just entirely exhausted by this endless parade of arranged dinners with women who always seemed to fall head over heels for his stock portfolio way before they even learned his first name. They were totally obsessed with his status, never him as a person. When he finally confessed this absolute despair to his mother, Victoria Carter, the highly formidable founder of Carter Holdings, she came up with a pretty radical test. And the rules for this experiment were unbelievably strict. First, Ethan had to work as a member of the custodial staff at his own company for 3 full months. Second, his true identity would be completely hidden from everyone except for Victoria and 2 sworn to secrecy HR officials. And third, and this is the big one, he was to use absolutely zero personal wealth or advantages. No private cars, no luxury apartment to retreat to at the end of the day, not even a warmer coat if it got cold. Victoria really wanted to observe from a distance and see who would treat a person who had absolutely nothing to offer them with genuine, unprompted decency.
So, Ethan trades in his tailored wool suits for faded gray cotton. He grabs that rusted cleaning cart and he experiences absolute invisibility. Stepping into the 52 floors of his very own empire, he carried nothing but a mop and a name tag that only had his first name on it. And honestly, it was a dramatic, super jarring shift. For the very first time in his entire life, people just looked right past him. He actually learned more about the day-to-day reality of his own company in his first few days pushing that cart than he had in a decade of high-level board meetings.
Moving on to Section 2, the invisible employee.
It's wild. When you strip away someone's power, you really get to see how the people around them actually behave. On one side of the coin, we have Emma Brooks. She's the head of interior design, and despite her high status in the company, she treats Ethan with this incredible warmth that asks for absolutely nothing in return. She greets him every single morning, brings him the good coffee from the design floor, and says a sincere thank you every time he clears away the debris after her team's late-night meetings. But then, in stark contrast, you've got executives like Ryan Cole. He's an ambitious sales director who literally takes pleasure in mocking the new custodian and purposefully leaving messes behind. And then there's Sophia Grant, a deputy communications director, who casually dismisses him right within earshot as just the old man with the mop. This whole dynamic perfectly captures that intense tension between transactional corporate networking and just, unconditional human kindness.
Which leads us to Section 3, building a connection. Now, Ethan wasn't just mopping floors out there, he was quietly paying really close attention. He noticed Emma was facing some intense pressure from Ryan, who was actively trying to undermine her major renovation project. Seeing this, Ethan secretly steps in, and his quiet acts of competence were honestly staggering for a guy who was supposedly just a janitor. Like, he spots a massive structural error in some dropped blueprints that her own engineering team totally missed. When her office printer jams right before a huge client pitch, he just steps in and fixes it in silence. He traces and reconnects a failing projector cable in the main conference room right in the nick of time. And when Emma is struggling with a super complex financial breakdown late at night, she comes in the next morning to find a perfectly corrected folder sitting right on her desk. Whenever Emma caught him and asked, how he knew so much about architecture or finance or fine art, Ethan would just humbly deflect. He'd offer this careful little smile and simply say, "I just like to read." This growing mutual intrigue led to them sharing dinners from this tiny little food cart outside the office.
And one evening, during a walk in the light rain, Emma dropped a truth bomb that literally stopped Ethan in his tracks. She said, "Money can buy comfort, but never character. I'd rather spend my life with someone honest and ordinary than someone rich and hollow." I mean, wow. She unknowingly voiced the exact philosophy Ethan had spent his entire adult life desperately searching for. Right in that moment, the massive walls he had built around his heart to protect his fortune just began to completely crumble.
But of course, things couldn't stay peaceful forever. Section 4. The Sabotage Attempt. So Ryan, our highly ambitious sales director, starts growing deeply suspicious of the new custodian's weirdly high intelligence and his growing bond with Emma. Driven by pure professional jealousy, he actually hires a private investigator, and when he can't dig up any dirt, he orchestrates a full-on frame-up. Ryan steals confidential client files straight from the design department and plants the evidence to point directly at Ethan. Within days, Ethan is suspended and humiliatingly escorted right out of the building by HR. But here is the absolute pivotal moment of the whole story. Emma stands up in an emergency department meeting, facing down colleagues she's known for years, and publicly defends the accused janitor. She was literally the only person in the entire building to do so. A few days later, security reviews the after-hours footage, which completely clears Ethan and actually catches Ryan red-handed in the theft. Ethan is fully vindicated, but there's this really dangerous tension left hanging in the air.
Okay, here we go. Section 5. The Grand Reveal.
The tension is absolutely peaking as Carter Holdings prepares for its massive 40th anniversary gala. But just before this highly anticipated event, Ethan suddenly vanishes from work for an entire week. His cleaning cart just sits there, completely untouched. Emma's left absolutely heartbroken. She's fearing that whatever special connection they shared meant nothing and he had just up and quit. Then comes the night of the gala. The lobby is totally transformed into this elegant ballroom. The outgoing CEO steps up to the microphone to introduce the new head of the company. A single, blinding spotlight hits the stage, illuminating a man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. And it's Ethan. The wave of recognition ripples through the crowd. Over by the bar, Ryan Cole suddenly realizes exactly who he just tried to frame, and he drops his champagne glass in absolute shock. The sound of that shattering glass just echoes through the dead silent ballroom.
Then, Victoria Carter steps up to the microphone and delivers the ultimate shock to the system. She says, "The man you have known these past months is in fact my own son." Absolute shock ripples through the crowd. Sophia, who had openly mocked him for months, turns ghost pale. But Emma doesn't feel joy here. She feels a sudden, sharp confusion that honestly borders on deep betrayal. Believing their entire relationship was just some elaborate performance, she turns and flees the ballroom out to a rain-swept balcony.
Ethan immediately chases after her into the rain for this incredibly raw, honest confrontation. His balcony confession is just so powerful. He strips away all the corporate polish and tells her, "The only thing I ever hid from you was my last name." He goes on to explain the profound, isolating loneliness of extreme wealth, that impossible task of knowing if someone loves you or if they just love your portfolio. He tells her that every single conversation they had by that food cart was 100% real, and as Emma listens, her anger starts softening. She realizes that if he had walked into the office in a tailored suit on day one, she never, ever would have had the courage to speak to him. It was actually the disguise that allowed their walls to come down.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's look at Section 6. Lessons in True Value.
This incredible social experiment entirely reshaped the future of the Carter Holdings empire, and it completely changed the lives of everyone involved. First off, Ryan Cole's deception fully catches up with him. The board reviews the security footage, they recognize a much wider pattern of manipulation, and he is dismissed from the company entirely. Justice served, right? But then look at Sophia Grant. Totally humbled and mortified, she actually seeks Ethan out privately to offer a really sincere apology for judging him by his uniform. And in a move that completely surprises the entire leadership team, Ethan chooses mercy. He shows her quiet grace and forgives her. He proved right there that true leadership isn't about retaliation, it's about leading with empathy.
And what about Emma? Well, once Ethan takes over as CEO, Emma flatly refuses all special treatment or accelerated promotions. She is absolutely determined to build her career entirely on her own talent and her own effort. Her steadfast refusal to cash in on Ethan's immense new power proved her absolute, unwavering integrity. And naturally, this just made Ethan admire and love her even more. She was never after the empire, she was just after the man.
So, Ethan is officially named CEO, and literally his very first act is to demand a company-wide culture of respect, completely regardless of titles or name tags. Fast forward 1 year later, and Ethan and Emma are married. But they don't have some massive, flashy society blowout. They have a modest garden wedding with just their close friends. Victoria, who is finally fully satisfied that her son has found genuine love, gifts Emma a generational family heirloom ring. And in this truly beautiful, full-circle moment, when the newlywed couple walk back into the Carter Holdings lobby, Ethan actually stops to personally shake hands and thank the custodial staff, the invisible workers who taught him way more about dignity than any boardroom ever could.
So, I want to leave you today with this final, really important question. How do you treat the invisible people in your world? Victoria's experiment proved that true character reveals itself most clearly in how you treat someone who can offer you absolutely nothing in return. Keep that in mind the next time you walk past someone pushing a cart. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this story leaves you reflecting on true value and maybe wanting to look a little closer at the everyday heroes hiding in plain sight.